Hello, everybody. Good morning. Fancy meeting you all here. Today is Sunday, January 28th. I'm Sarah. You know that. Let me know you're here. Say hi in the chat area. It's always nice to know that. Like, I see the numbers, but it's nice to know someone's actually here. So hello, Carol and Denise. Thank you for making me feel better on this day by saying hello. This is another Sunday coffee chat. We're going to see about making these a regular thing. I have to tell you that there's an element to me that does not like having commitments. And I will say my friends who knew me the best found it very surprising that I got married. A few of them were like, that's interesting. I didn't see that coming, because I tend to be such a commitment. I don't know, like this commitment thing. And so this knowledge of having the same thing every week ongoing when I'm already like pretty full, there's a part of it that just makes me like, no, I can't commit to a Sunday live stream yet. I feel like I'll probably do one most weeks anyway. So how the brain works, it's an interesting thing. All right, what we're doing today in today's coffee talks, we do have a kind of plan or a theme to go with this. Yeah, Polly says wanderer. Yes, that is me. That is me for sure. Oh my gosh. Yeah, totally. The marriage thing. I could just go on and on about that. I actually broke out in hives I got married at like a wedding place, right? Where like people just have weddings and like proms and stuff like that. And we got married outside though, on this hill under this tree. And because the building's far away, they have like a car, like a limo that drives the bride from the building to the area, because it's, a walking distance. And myself and my bridesmaids were in this limo, and we get to the part where I have to walk out to the back of it, and I'm supposed to walk in front of it, right? Or the bridesmaids each go. So we get there and they open the door, and I just like couldn't breathe and put my arms out, not to let anybody out. And I broke out in like red hives all on my chest and my face. And then my best friend, whose name is Sarah, also, we lived together in college and we worked together. We met at work and then lived together. She looked at Anna, who looked at Sarah, and then Sarah picked up her phone like she didn't know who to contact, because she was pretty certain I wasn't going to get out of that vehicle. And then I remember seeing Sarah hold her phone, and I remember thinking, like, what is wrong with you? Because I'm the one who I was like, let's get married to my husband. I'm like, what is wrong with you? You've got engaged brain cells. And then I got out of the car, and I was supposed to get out last, because the bridesmaids go first. Anyway, I just remember having this moment of seeing her trying to figure out who to call, and me being like, what are you doing? And then I rushed out, and they all stumbled out after me and started walking down the aisle. So anyway, when I say that I have a bit of a commitment thing, it is very serious. Now that you know that about me, on this day, here's what we're talking about. We are going to look at planning for the week ahead, because I know that is something that people struggle with and would love. We're just going to take 2 minutes, and I will sort of guide you through some questions to help you plan for the week ahead. Yes, Norma, you are all muted, so I just see your names in the comment. And then I'm going to remind everybody what's going on at the Sisters Enchanted coming up this week. And we're going to talk a little bit about astrology today. And I'm going to share with you how I use astrology in my personal life for like family dynamics and communication. And it's really interesting because this morning I actually saw 2 posts in our groups, one from one community member who's doing our astrology program and was looking at her Mercury transit and was, thinking about how that impacts her. And then another person who shared about her wife and their relationship and how they might think differently, and how astrology might have something to do with that. So I think it's divine timing, right, that we're going to talk about this here today. Okay, first things first, let's talk about some planning. I and this is where my personality really is very two-sided, because I love a good plan, yet I don't like feeling like I'm trapped in commitment. So it's got to be a plan of my doing that feels good to me. Uh, all right. If you're using the Sisters Enchanted planner, this is what I, you can totally use this for planning for the week ahead. I mostly use actually a digital planner. I use Google Calendar. It's the thing that keeps me moving without forgetting things. If I didn't have those electronic reminders to do different things, then I would definitely not get where I'm supposed to be, like pretty much ever. Those 10-minute reminders that come up on my phone, I do wear an electronic watch, and those 10-minute reminders are life-saving for me. I literally cannot tell you how many times I've been about to put my kids in the car to go somewhere, and one pops up and I'm like, oh wait, we can't do that thing because this thing starts in 10 minutes. Turn around, go back in the house. And it happens to me more than I'd like to admit. So I rely wholeheartedly on a digital calendar. I use our Sisters Enchanted planner to keep tabs on my energy embodiment, how I want to feel. So I think about how I want to feel for the year, how I want to feel for the lunar cycle, and then with the specific next week or day in mind, how I want to feel considering everything that's going on around me. I also I use this planner that I got on Amazon for like, I don't know, it's under $20, but I like it because it has the hourly times on it. So I will sort of lay out my week on here and then make sure that's all on my digital calendar, because once I write this, I will put it away and I will forget that it exists all week long, which is why I need the digital calendar. All right. So my questions for you as you're thinking about the week ahead and sort of planning for it, whether you do this now or do it later, I want you to consider these as you're listening in, doing whatever it is that, you want to be doing. Think about your intention or any goals that you set for the year ahead. Am I still frozen or am I back? Denise says I froze. Let's see here. Denise, am I good? I'm going to keep talking. I want you to think about the intention that you set for the year ahead. Okay. Norma says I'm good. All right. The intention that you set for the year ahead, or any goals that you set as well. So the intention is how you want to feel, right? How you want to feel for the next year. My intention for this year is the word unreasonable. I want it to feel unreasonable, like I'm having an unreasonable amount of fun. Just life seems so unreasonable, but in a good, fabulous way. Some of you might have heard me tell the story about not flinching. So I want to seize opportunities, not flinch, right? I want the life to just feel so unreasonable in the best possible way. My intention for this lunar cycle was harmony, to feel harmony between in my energy. I just wanted to feel more harmony in my life. And this also came about because of some just kind of numbers and words I kept seeing over and over again. And I thought that it would be helpful for me to lean into this energy of harmony. So I'm thinking I want life to feel unreasonable, and I want life to feel harmonious. That's my current way that I want to feel in my life. I don't actually set a lot of goals, if I'm being honest with you. I very rarely set a goal to do something, like to save a certain money by a period of time, to read a number of pages, to weigh an amount, or what are these common goals people set? I rarely set goals because I find that I often don't achieve them when I do set them. My realism doesn't appear to apply to goal setting. So I just go by how I want to feel. And then I keep tabs on life. So does my bank account feel the way it needs to feel? Does my body feel the way it needs to feel? Do my relationships feel the way they need to feel? Does the back end, the team at the Sisters Enchanted, feel the way it needs to feel? And if the answer is a no, then I start to dive into where's the roadblock? What can I fix, right? So for you, for the year ahead, did you have a way you want to feel, an intention? Did you set any goals? For the lunar cycle that we're in right now, which we're 2 weeks left, a little less than 2 weeks left of this lunar cycle. Did you have an intention or goal for this lunar cycle, or both? With those things in mind, look at your week ahead. You begin planning for the week ahead by putting into your plan the things you have to do, the things you absolutely have to do. So for me this week, I have a bunch of Sisters Enchanted stuff that I absolutely have to do. I guess that is a goal. I'm working on a project, all these moon rituals, and I'm supposed to have it done by the end of this month. So I'm going to come in hot getting that done. I'll tell Team TSC, if you're listening on the replay or live, this is going to come in. It's going to be burning hot when I deliver it. So that has to be on my calendar. I also, I release podcasts every week. There's all these things that I do that have to be done. They have to be recorded. They have to be submitted. So those are all on the calendar. This week, I'm having dinner with family members, extended family, 2 different nights this week. So that's on the calendar. My kids' activities, those are on the calendar. They've got like swim lessons and book clubs and things like that. So everything that has to be done at a specific time is on my calendar. So for you, if you work, your work times are going to go on your calendar. If there's times that you have to leave the house to care for people or take people places, or, whatever you do that has to get done, put that on the calendar first. Then you want to zoom out and look at all the white space that's left. And this is where you ask yourself, what do I need to do this week to feel the way I want to feel? And you start to put those things in the calendar next. So what do I need to do this week to feel the way I want to feel? And then put that in the calendar. It's really as easy as that. Planning for the week ahead is that easy. And then from there, though, it's sticking to it. And this is where I think people really fall off. And it's finding the strategy that works for you. I tell you, I would not do most of what I do if it were not for digital reminders. My brain does not work that way. I'm often checking a work situation from my phone while I have a kid telling me they can't log in to their math program because we homeschool, and my husband's yelling at me about like what's for dinner tonight, all at the same time. And so there's very little space for me to remember what I need to do. And if I didn't have digital reminders, I wouldn't do it. So I want you to think for yourself, what again is your intention? How do you want to feel both this whole year and this lunar cycle? Any goals that you set? And after you've put your hard and fast commitments on your calendar, look at what's left and then put the things on the calendar that will help you to feel the way you want to feel. All right. It really is that easy. And how to stick to it, you got to find a method that works for you. If that is digital reminders, if that is plastering your calendar in 4 different places in your house, so you see it on the back of the bathroom door, the side of the refrigerator, right next to your spot on the sofa where you always sit down, a screenshot on your phone. I have 2 text messages from Anna, but I have a collage on my phone, so that a photo collage of all these things that remind me of how I want to feel. There's mountains on there, someone paddle boarding, some fruit, all these ways that I want to feel, right? And so when I pick it up, I have this reminder of how I want to feel. All right, that is your task. I want everybody to sit down and do this for today. And then I use my Sisters Enchanted planner every day to have that energetic check-in. Oh, I just dropped my phone, to make sure that I am trucking along and feeling the way I want to feel. So I do a little energy check-in on my lunar tracker. I will write in the daily spot. If I pull a tarot card, I will write that down and kind of have that moment of clarity with myself. What is it that I'm doing today to feel it, how I want to feel? And when life doesn't feel that way, what am I going to do to course correct it? All right. Sundays. I do that every single Sunday. What do I do? On Fridays, I check into my finances. So every Friday I do a financial deep dive to see, where everything is, how far we are like on things that we're paying off, where the money's coming in. That happens every Friday, and every Sunday I plan for the week ahead. Okay. That is it on planners. If you are in any of our classes, you can always go to your class groups to find the live stream times and put those in your calendar. For my kids who are in a lot of online homeschool things, I often am not the one that gets them sorted with that because I do work full time, but I put them on my calendar so that I remember to check in about it. So like if they have different activities, it's still on my calendar. So I know it's happening. And then it's a reminder to me to go see if there were any notes about it or any emails about it, any follow-up. Sometimes I will watch the replay of something that they did live just so that I can help support them later. And with your Sisters Enchanted classes, it would be the same thing. So if you have live classes, put them on the calendar. And if you can't be there live, it's a reminder to you to check in on what happened and if it's something that you want to come back to. So this week, there is an astrology fundamentals call for the holistic witchery folks and people in astrology fundamentals to sort of get you moving and shaking on that on Monday. For our membership folks on Friday night, I'm hosting our ebook ritual. And then if you're in the mastermind, head over to the group chat because I left you a voice memo about feeling alive and looking for those opportunities. So go listen to that and share with me about feeling alive and what you're doing to feel that way so we can support you in your journeys. And magical self-care, you also have your third call for the January round this week. And then the next round starts February 9th. All right, then. Let's see here. Jennifer is sharing, I'm more of a calendar person than ever before. My work life was calendared, but once I calendared my personal, game changer. Yes. For those of you who don't know, we're going to talk about astrology next. So you know what's coming here. But for those of you who don't know, before Sisters Enchanted, I worked with adults and kids who have executive function challenges to learn how to learn and organize themselves. So a lot of what I did was help people organize themselves so then they had the capacity to learn. So we're talking in terms of kids, learning differences like ADHD, dyslexia, processing disorders. For adults, doctors, lawyers, professionals, people that are community organizers who have full-time jobs, but were having to take extra time to do their job because they just couldn't organize themselves. And so calendaring is really the core strategy to begin with. So if you're a person who feels like life is constantly getting away from you, calendaring is the first place to start. And then from there, you can start to figure out the strategies around that work. But if you are not using some kind of scheduling system, which is often what I hear from people is it just doesn't work for them, you've got to start and figure out what will work for you. And if you're a woman between the ages of 35 and 60, your hormones are doing things that give you brain fog, that the symptoms of that are similar to symptoms of ADD or ADHD. So there's this real rise on social media of women, particularly being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD later in life. And, I have no problem with that. And personally, in my experience, a diagnosis of whatever isn't really that helpful if you're not a kid who's in school to get services that might be helpful, because treating the symptoms is pretty similar across anything. And the hormonal changes that happen in women between the ages of 35 and 60, they are different than ADHD. So I want to be clear about that. It's not the same thing happening inside, but what it comes out as on the outside is the same. And so the presentation of it is not different. And if you are in that age range, which like everybody here is for the most part, there's a few younger, but most people here, by and large, like 95% are in that age range. If you feel like you can't keep up, you forget things, you've got brain fog, you're overwhelmed, really sitting down and making a ritual out of your daily planning, your weekly planning is pretty critical to helping relieve that feeling, because you have some idea on what you're doing, where your time is going. And a lot of the strategies that we go over in Magical Self-Care in the time audit section and the different bonuses with Magical Self-Care are mission critical to feeling like life is supportive and not just coming at you every single second. And I'm not going to lie and say there's no magic pill. It's a journey and everybody needs something different. I have to have the digital reminders. If I do not have them, things will not happen. So I am so grateful that I live in the time that I live in because that's available to me. I cannot even imagine if I lived the life I do now with all the things that I do like 30 years ago. I probably wouldn't be able to, because I would be forgetting things all the time. And so figuring out what works for you, that whether it's sticky notes, digital reminders, lots of printed calendars, all of that is going to be helpful for you. Chris is asking, times for the lives in circle are accurate for our time zones, right? To my knowledge, Chris, they are. To my knowledge, that is the case. They should adjust for your time zone. All right. There you go. A little bit of planning for the week ahead. Make a ritual out of it. The next thing we're going to talk about here today is astrology. And like I said, it's timely because I saw a few questions about it come up, or not questions, but like, discussions in the community groups around astrology just today when I logged into Circle to see what everybody was up to this weekend. And astrology is one of those topics that I think is, I don't know, astrology done well can be absolutely life-changing. Astrology done surface level, I think can really be a great tool for just like zoning out and escaping reality. So what do I mean by that? I am a Sagittarius sun, I'm a Cancer rising, and I'm an Aquarius moon. So if I were to go online and look up like a horoscope or what do I need to know for Sagittarius right now, those horoscopes are written to rising signs, not sun signs. But most people who aren't in a community like this don't know their rising sign. And to get an accurate rising sign, you have to know your birth time to get the most accurate rising sign. Now, there are things you can do to try to figure out your rising sign within a couple of options, but to get the most accurate, you have to know your birth time. So as you can imagine, if horoscopes, which remember, they used to be in the newspapers every week, right? That industry would be non-existent if it required everybody to know their birth time, because up until, the more recent past, birth times often weren't even listed on birth certificates. So if we're going way back, then that wouldn't be a thing. Like people wouldn't be able to identify with it, and horoscopes would not be a thing that existed, right? And so when you go online and you start to just look at like Googleable information, it can give you some helpful ideas, some stuff to consider. But what that's not doing is really connecting the dots for you. And it's this depth of dot connection that is what makes astrology so powerful. So if you were to zoom out, I actually have my whole family's birth charts pulled up over here so I can give some real life examples without getting my facts lost in my head, because it is like looking at a puzzle. If you were to zoom out and look at my birth chart, right, you would know that, yes, I'm a Sagittarius sun, and I actually have 5 planets in Sagittarius. So that's a stellium. They're all in the same house, which means that I have a whole wallop of Sagittarius energy. So Sagittarius information is very, very relevant to me. And though I'm a Cancer rising, and that's how my horoscopes are going to be written, by that Cancer rising. And if you look at my birth chart, you would know that I don't have any significant planets. I have no asteroids, nothing in Cancer. But Cancer rules 2 houses for me, house 1 and house 2, and it is my rising sign. So for me to ignore the fact just by looking at Cancer and not knowing what a rising sign is, or saying, oh, well, I don't have any planets in Cancer, so it's insignificant to me. Like, it's my rising sign and it rules 2 houses. That's really powerful and really important information to know when I am examining myself in astrology and what I can learn about myself. But if you don't know that, you would totally just discount it and be like, oh, there's nothing there. But look at all this. Like if you look at my birth chart, Scorpio and Sagittarius, it's like, bam, everything lives here. And you might think like, oh, that's what I got to focus on. And I know from learning astrology with our team here, our team of astrologers, that the fact that that I have this, I've got a lot. My north and south node are intercepted. They're in Scorpio and Taurus. Neither of those signs rule any houses, right? And my black moon Lilith, this is like advanced astrology now, is also with my north node in Taurus, and it's intercepted. So like that is a whole other discussion when you start to think, oh my gosh, my future self is buried so deep down and I will rebel against it at every turn, which is probably, if you heard back at the beginning, my rebellious discussion, right? But when you learn astrology, this is where the magic starts to happen. And this is where the change starts to happen. Now, I want to tell you about how I use astrology practically in my life. And I have to give you some backstory to make this make sense. So, you know a little bit about my family. My husband and I've known my husband for 21 years. We've been together for 15 of those years. We've been married for almost 12 of those years. And we have two kids. Both of our kids are very neurodivergent. One of them has some trouble with demand avoidance, which can make parenting very, very tricky. Another one has, it's been a journey with the other one. It's been challenging. And my husband is a very kind of anxious dude in and of himself. And I am a person who tends to live life with little caution. I just sort of go out in life and live it, right? So you can see how this dynamic can be challenging for people who are home together much of the time. My husband is a stay-at-home dad, and he helps with my grandparents as well. My grandfather has dementia, and he helps take care of my grandparents. And he last worked about 6 years ago. Now, this is all important because it was astrology that helped me understand the relationship to improve the relationship. We went to marriage counseling for months and months and months, spent $180 per session once a week over months and months and months and made zero progress. And then when I looked at our astrology charts together, it was like a light bulb went off and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've just been looking at this man completely through some lens that doesn't show who he is. And now I can look at him differently. And we've been able to stay together, stay married. Our relationship is better than ever before, but it's because of astrology that worked for us. So my husband is a Capricorn rising. I'm a Cancer rising. Those are opposite signs, which tells you that we are going to look at the world opposite all the time. Let me tell you a little bit more about our story so this makes even more sense for you. When my husband stopped working, I had a 5-month-old baby, a 3-year-old toddler, and I had just come off of running 2 businesses for 1 year. And then he decided to stop working. He decided to stop working without a real discussion about it. We did not talk about it. He was like, I had been asking for more help. I was like, I think you need to work more. I think you need to take on, he was self-employed too. I was like, I think you need to take on more jobs. I'm drowning. I'm crying all the time. I'm really struggling. Our daughter is struggling. Like, we're going to have to get some support with her. And it was a really bad scene around here. And his solution was to quit his job. And I was like, oh my gosh, I might kill you. It was really, really a tough time for a few years. This is where the counseling came in. Anyway, we get to astrology. What I learned about Capricorn is that Capricorn has this ability to see things that other signs can't see. The sea goat, that's the sign of Capricorn, it climbs this mountain, right? And it has this ability to see from a perspective that other signs cannot see. Now, when you learn astrology, you also learn that all of the zodiac signs are aligned with an element: earth, air, fire, water. And there are 3 earth, 3 air, 3 fire, 3 water throughout the 12 zodiac signs. The first 4, earth, air, fire, water, they are the more impulsive of those elements. They've got a lot more to learn, right? Like they're not wise yet. And then you've got the middle ones, much like life. They've learned some stuff. They're a little more stable and sturdy. And then you've got your last 4, the third grouping of 4. They are the most mature, the most wise. So my rising sign, Cancer, it's in that first group. It's the most immature of the water signs. Cancer, it's watery, it's emotional. It will react and then hide away. And it just wants to react to things. His rising sign, it's the most mature of the earth signs, Capricorn. So he can see things that I cannot see. While I'm over here crying puddles of tears and just trying to get in a blanket cave and make myself feel better and probably making it worse, he has a perspective that I cannot see. I cannot get there. And it took me he's not worked for about 6 years. It took me probably 5 of those years to understand that he saw something that I couldn't see. And what he saw was the ability that I have to do everything that I do and everything I've done all these years. And in that emotional moment, I couldn't see that. All I could see was that I was drowning. Somebody save me. Somebody help me. And when you feel like you need saving, you make bad decisions. And that's exactly what I was doing left and right. And he could see it all the way along, but I couldn't. So it's his Capricorn rising that is very challenging for me to understand. Very, very, very challenging because we don't communicate. We don't see the world, rather, in the same way. We are seeing the world very, very differently. And it took astrology to show me that, to see like, whoa, Sarah, Cancer rules your first two houses of your birth chart. Like, I am an emotional person. I will bring emotion into something so fast, and I have to work really hard to understand that about myself and to nurture myself so that I don't become reactive. Where his Capricorn rising sees things that I don't yet see and don't yet understand, and learning to trust him in that has been a real journey for me. It's been really, really challenging. But using astrology helped me to see that. Now I can put my kids, I do have kids. I know not everybody here does, but the people you live with, the people you're close to, the people you work with, you can start to apply this to those relationships as well. When I look at my daughter, she's a Libra rising. My son is a Sagittarius rising. And it makes a lot of sense to me that my son and I, he's that Sagittarius rising. I've got 5 planets in Sagittarius. I'll just 1 minute be like, let's go on a 5-mile hike right now. And my son is like, yes, let me get my backpack. He's my little sidekick on all those adventures. Meanwhile, my daughter, who's a Libra rising, she's a Cancer sun and a Taurus moon. Girl just wants to stay home. She wants to stay home with her things, and she just wants to feel comfortable. She must drink 4 cups of tea a day, and she's only 9 years old. She's all about like cozying up and just being in her space. And as a parent, I can get really frustrated because she pushes back when I say, let's go do this thing. Let's go do this activity. And we all know what it's like to feel like people aren't listening to us. People don't want to do the thing we want to do. And then we react, we get mad at them. And when we look at astrology, we can better see like, no, they're not being defiant, or they're not against me. They're not against everything I say. They're not ignoring me. They're not lazy. They're not whatever words we put on people. They are just different. And I think we all know that intellectually, but being able to see it on a birth chart is so powerful because you can literally see the differences in front of you. And you're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense for all of us that we are so different, right? So I have this, and then my son, he's an 11th house Scorpio moon, I think. I always get this mixed up if he's a 12th or 11th. I think he's an 11th house Scorpio moon, but he is very emotionally reactive. He's very, very emotionally reactive. And yeah, he's a 11th house, right at the end of the 11th house there, Scorpio moon. And that makes a lot of sense also with his emotional reactivity. Now he does have some diagnoses, or he's got some things, right, that happen for him in the science world. But when I look at his birth chart, I can see it right there also, that it makes perfect sense to me that my son, at the snap of a finger, will go from the most cuddly little boy ever to the most argumentative tiny human, and don't even know what the words that are coming out of his mouth. But I see it there in astrology. And then I can see that in my Scorpio house, I have Mars and I have Pluto, which is a lot of wanting to have power in Scorpio. It's a lot of also flare up energy. And I have to be very mindful of when my sun goes to 110 degrees that I have to typically walk away, because my energy will want to match it and double it. And that is not helpful. And knowing that about myself, when I see it with him, I instantly walk away. Immediately I walk away, because I know there is nothing I can do to help that situation in that time. And I know it about whether it's energetically, just knowing yourself, or astrology. You can see it right there in my birth chart, that's what happens with me in Scorpio, right? And this is what's happening with him. And that is not a match that's going to work out well. I have to walk away right away because it's just not a good scene if I try to get him to listen, quote unquote, right? Like I cannot try to get him to listen. I just have to walk away. So being able to look at all of these birth charts and put the pieces together is very, very helpful for me to understand relationships. I can look at it with my mother. My mother and I have a bit of a harried past, a stressful past, just a lot going on there. And my mom is a Sagittarius rising, sun, and moon, all right there in her first house. And I can see where my Sagittarius is in my sixth house of service, of wanting to be of service to people. And my Cancer is all that first house stuff for me. And that's the mother energy that's being nurtured. And my mom with her Sagittarius right there, all of that in her first house, that's a lot of like me energy. The fact that her sun, moon, and rising is right there. Like, look at me, listen to me, hear me, feel me, all right there. And when I look at her birth chart and I look at mine, it actually really helped me to forgive her for a lot of the things that she put me through as a kid and even into adulthood when I felt like my mom should have been there with me and she just was not, or made situations worse. Being able to see her birth chart and then look at mine, let me forgive her in a way that I hadn't been able to before, because I could see that this is just a person and this is her blueprint and she's living that blueprint. And I can also see based on her north node and her south node, I can see where she's going in this lifetime. And I can see the strengths with that and also the challenges she's having in getting there. And I can forgive her for this humanness, right? And it helps to be able to see something that explains that to you. So looking at birth charts of the people you're close to is a amazingly powerful and transformative experience when you're also at the self-awareness level where you're able to say, well, how do I want to feel in this relationship? When you're able to let go of expectation, when you're able to deepen into your own shadow work and understand what's your stuff versus what is other people's stuff, and actually able to, on some level, understand what you're seeing. I don't even have that much astrology teaching under my belt, experience and learning. I learned from Anna and Nick as they've taught it over the years, but I'm able to do this level of understanding on my own based on just their fundamental teachings, their kind of beginning teachings over the years. And it's been amazingly transformative in my communication, my relationships to see this. Also understanding where energies are right now. Like we just had a Leo full moon. And so I can understand, what's going on in each of our houses with Leo energy, and the full moon, it shines a light on your shadow elements, your emotional elements. So I'm able to look and say, okay, well, this is what's being illuminated for the people that I'm closest with, right? This is what's being illuminated for them. And it helps us to also understand what might be coming and how to better prepare ourselves emotionally for these relationships and the people that we spend time with. I love to look at birth charts with our Sisters Enchanted teammates too, because it really helps us understand how people communicate, where we might get resistance with each other. We also use our expansion archetype model for this to see like who's a wanderer, who's a mapper. We use that because it's a really quick and easy way to understand how a person might be sabotaging in their work, like where they might be afraid of something. So they're low-key sabotaging. But then the nuance of astrology helps us to understand where our energy patterns might just really like repel each other versus be able to work together really well. And then we can work on that as needed to be a more functional team. All right, let me see here in the comments. Teresa shared, I took a dive into my hubby's chart a few days ago. He's a Capricorn sun. I'm a Capricorn rising. I'm a Libra sun. He's a Libra rising. That's so interesting, Teresa, but different moons. So curious. Yeah, definitely dig into it. When I learned, my husband and I are both fire sun signs. So he's an Aries sun. I'm a Sagittarius sun. We're opposite rising signs, but we have the same moon sign and we are married under that moon sign, totally unbeknownst to us. And it makes so much sense. Him and I are so similar, yet so different. And I think the similarities and differences, your rising sign is really kind of your energy with which if you wore different colored sunglasses for each of the signs, it's how you see the world. It's your presence in the world. It's kind of your motivation for being in the world energetically when you're born into the world. So we're very opposite in how we see the world, our energy moving through the world, right? We're very opposite in that way. And then our sun signs, your sun is your ego self, are both fire signs, but his is Aries. So that's the first of the fire signs. It's the more like impulsive, and mine's Sagittarius, which is on the end of the fire sign. So that's more wise and wisdom seeking in its fire. But our egos are both fire. And then our reactiveness is Aquarius. And that's what we were married under also. And that's your moon is that reactiveness, your emotional self. So what you do when you are in your emotions. And we're both Aquarius. So we both think we're right all the time. We both have a fiery ego. We both think we're right all the time, but we see the world completely opposite. You can imagine how that makes for a challenging marriage. I think you can just imagine that every day there is a challenge to be had in our marriage. I think every single day there is something that comes up and I'm like, not worth the effort. Walk away, Sarah, walk away. But it helped us. Astrology helped us more than marriage counseling did, hands down. 110% it helped. And that was just from me looking at astrology. Like my husband has done nothing different, literally nothing different. And things are completely changed because I can see him differently. And with me seeing him differently, I communicate to him differently with more forgiveness, more grace, right? And then he communicates to me differently just because I'm communicating to him differently. So all it took was me shifting how I talk to him, how I receive him, the grace I have for him. Now I can look at him when I think he's being stubborn or doing something that's really annoying. I think back to when he quit his job and how literally all this cool stuff I've been able to do in the world, I probably would not have done if he didn't do that. But it took me 5 years to understand that he saw that I could make more of an impact for our family and for the world through what I do for work. He was a home remodeling contractor, and he knew that one, to make more money meant he just had to work more. Like he was just going to have to like hammer more, climb more ladders, paint more in the summer when it's 90 degrees and the humidity is 90% in Connecticut. Like that's what he saw. And he knew that I could do more for people. And he knew that I could do more for our family than he could. But I was so mad at him for like leaving me holding the bag, I felt like, for so many years. And it took all that time for me to see he doesn't have the emotional bandwidth to communicate in that way. He's not a soft man. Actually, Teresa, who's here, she met my husband. My husband's very nice, but he's not a soft man. He's not a person who's going to like tell you all these loving, positive things. That is not my husband. And he didn't have the words to communicate that. But I could see that his Capricorn rising knew from his perspective that he needed to stop working and that I then could work more. But it took me to get out of my own way to be able to understand what was going on. And astrology really, 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 really helped with that. Like so much it helped with that. Let's see here. Sharon is sharing your daughter is my new bestie. That was from like 10 minutes ago. Yeah, my daughter is pretty sweet. She's a pretty awesome kid. I know everyone thinks their kids are awesome, right? Everyone's kids are awesome. Meredith, game changer when I realized my Leo sun child actually had mostly earth energy. I thought he needed more get up and go. Nope, the exact opposite. Love that, Meredith. Yeah. Tina, very interested to learn about your youngest. They're twins 3 minutes apart and pretty opposite. The twins can be really interesting because if they have different rising signs, that could explain why they're different. However, we have seen the case of twins who their charts are exactly the same in their rising signs and everything, and they present differently. The thing to understand about astrology is that there's a shadow and a light to every element, right? So my Cancer rising is very helpful because I'm really great at like I can hold people. There's no way I could do this job if I couldn't hold people. I mean, we've had over 10,000 people come through our programs through the years, and we've had like 300,000 go through our free classes. There is no way we could do that if I didn't have the capacity to hold people. And my Cancer rising allows for me to do that. That's very much a strength of mine, to hold people. I can do that. But the shadow of a Cancer rising is that if I feel like I have been hurt, if I feel an emotional despair, I can fall down a 100-foot well of that emotion like very, very quickly. And it's very hard for me to see my way out of it without like processing it for 7 days straight. Right. So it's not something I bounce back from quickly. And that would be a weakness of that Cancer rising. Another element to that, a strength in that Cancer rising, is being able to understand what people like, being able to nurture people based on reading between the lines. Like I can see what people need when they're not able to articulate what they need. And that's a Cancer rising strength. But then another weakness there is that I will want to take care of people so much that I will like completely let myself suffer because I just want to take care of them. Like I just want to be the mother and take care of them. And so there's a strength and a weakness to every sign of the zodiac. And even if two people have the exact same birth chart, where a person is with their strengths and weaknesses will impact how it's interpreted, which is why knowing astrology and knowing what kinds of questions to ask when you're looking at a birth chart is what makes it so effective versus when you just like go online and Google, what am I? Pluto and Scorpio in the 5th house. That's one of my placements. And if I Google that, I'm going to get all kinds of information. And most of it, when you Google that, if you Google like Pluto and Mars and Scorpio in the 5th house, you'll get some like wild things. But if you're able to ask questions and say, hey, there's probably a lot of childhood trauma here. Is this something that you've worked through? Yes or no? And then if I say, oh, yes, I'm highly aware of that, I'm very self-aware to it, then the reading becomes, all right, well, Pluto and Mars in Scorpio, that can prime you for like a fierce creativity if you're in your strength of that, right? And if I had said, no, what are you talking about, childhood trauma? That's not me. I don't know anything about that. I'm 0% self-aware. If that was my answer, then you'd be like, oh my gosh, you're a ticking time bomb. So being able to understand the shadow and the light to the different elements or the different zodiac signs and put them together also helps you to understand when two people might have very similar placements, how they are like the exact same birth chart in the case of twins, how it might actually be very different based on the information that is coming out from like a conversation, right? There you go. There's that. And Melissa's asking, is anyone on Team TSE do birth chart readings with explanations? To my knowledge, no one is doing them right now. One-offs. We have a mastermind program, and there are some astrology things there, but just I think that two of our 4 astrology teachers, I know at least 3 of them do not do, they all work full-time jobs and teach. So they don't do one-off bookings. And I am not sure. I will check with our 4th astrology teacher and see about anything. But right now, I don't have like a link I can drop you, but it's not the first time we've had the question. So, I don't know. I'll fish around and see if Team TSC has any ideas. We do, have, a reader that we could refer to. I don't know that she does like very specific kind of readings, though, not like generalized looking at things. All right, let's see here. Nicole's saying it's overwhelming how much is in the chart. Oh my gosh, wait until so for those of you who are interested, we have our holistic witchery program, which includes this year and last year includes our astrology fundamentals class. We are having an enrollment on the program this coming weekend. And the astrology fundamentals class is kicking off, and it's taught for 5 weeks with 4 teachers. So it's a beautiful time to get in there and get feedback and share. And they're all brilliant. Kiara has she was a student here, and now she's writing a book on quantum physics and witchcraft. And she also has her master's in healthcare administration. So she sees in numbers and puzzles. And then Nick, he and Anna, Anna's my sister and co-founder, they wrote the program, and they've been doing astrology for like over a decade. And they learned from somebody who trained in both Vedic and Western astrology. We teach Western. And Nick just completed his bachelor's in psychology. So we're really excited for him. He went back to school and did that. And then Kelly, who teaches all of holistic witchery programming, she's in there teaching as well. And so it's this really well-rounded bunch of people. Kelly and Anna, I think, teach more through story and verbal processing and intuition. And Nick and Kiara see in puzzles and numbers. And it's really like their dynamics are very different because not everybody thinks in either of those ways, right? Which is why I love having the 4 teachers, because astrology on one sense has a right and wrong answer, but also doesn't, because when you are thinking of people as people, you've got to understand the nuance and emotion to really give information that's helpful. But then like, 2 planets conjunct or square, that means something. And so if you can't see that, then what you're saying might not be completely, like there might be more to the puzzle that you're not seeing, right? So it's really, really, just really interesting to dive into. Yeah, Kira's book. Yeah, I don't know. She's working on it. Kira is a person who does 100 projects at once, and I just admire her energy to do that. But we'll definitely keep you in the know about that. But if you're interested, you're not in holistic witchery, definitely get on the info list. You'll get a brochure about it, and then the class opens up next weekend for signups. But so as I was saying, to round us out here on Sundays, let's go through all this stuff. On Sundays, I plan ahead for the week ahead, right? And I look at what do I have to do? And one of the things, I don't always do it, but I might consider to myself, well, what is going on with the moon this week? I love to focus on the moon because it highlights your emotional body, and your emotional body and being reactive is what impacts so many of us the most, right? So if I know that like we have a full moon, or we have a new moon in Aquarius on February 9th. And like I said, my husband and I are both Aquarius moons, and we are married under an Aquarius moon. So you bet your bottom dollar that I am going to really think about that, because the moon will be in our sign and it's going to be a new moon. And what do I need to know about that? What do I need to know about our plans for that day? Am I expecting that maybe we're both going to be a little more reactive or not? What is there to know there? I have people in my life who don't believe in astrology. Anna's husband, actually, Anna teaches astrology, and Anna's husband is not an astrology believer. He's like, I don't know about that. And it's interesting because even if a person isn't an astrology believer, the questions you start to ask yourself when you look at a birth chart, though, are questions that you wouldn't have asked elsewise, and that can really make a big difference in your life and how you look at things. So even if I'm not an astrology believer, for example, and I just pulled up my husband's birth chart here, and let's see here. So he has Mars in Leo, and his North Node is also in Leo. We just had the Leo full moon. And so when I'm thinking about that, I can think like, well, Mars is this fast action planet. It's small and fiery, and you think about Mars being aligned with the god of war, Aries, the god of war. And what does that mean when the full moon is illuminating that for my husband? It's also in his 8th house, which is the house of taboo things, death, sex, and taxes. And when I think about this and the full moon that was on the 25th, like this makes a lot of sense to me. But I can also start to ask like, okay, well, how might my husband be feeling fiery or like defensive of finances right now, or defensive about the taboo things in his life and his beliefs around them? Like, where might he really want to like hold the fort on the things he believes in here? And then even if you're not an astrology believer, you can still start to ask really good questions about a person that you're close to that you might not have asked before, that can help you think about things in a different way, or think about them in a different way, right? Because we get asked this question a lot: is what do you do when your partner doesn't believe in all this, whatever this is, your partner doesn't believe? And I think that it's for you to believe, right? Your partner's not here, you are, for one. So it's for you. You don't have to believe that. Like, my husband thinks all sorts of things that I don't believe in, or not believe in, but I think are just nonsense or not a good use of time. He does all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, never in a million years would I spend my time reading that, looking at that, doing that. 0%. But we're different people. It's not my job to make him want to be like me, and it's not his job to make me want to be like him. We're completely different, as seen in our birth charts. And so understanding that it's for you. And so how can you better be in relationship with people? And you can ask these questions, and then these questions that you ask can inform how you talk to people in your life also, which can then improve those relationships, even though they're not on board with all of your stuff, whatever you want to call it, and it does work well that way. So this is how I've used astrology in my life to understand relationships, communication, the people in my life, and how we can best sort of work together in this life, because your family and your friends, or whoever you're close to, you're in the community with them. That's one of the things I say to my kids all the time when they'll talk about, they're little, but I tell them that we are in our house, we're a community, and in the community has to work together for the community to thrive. This isn't the kids versus the parents, or each person's like demanding their needs. We're all in a community together. And I have that same approach here at the Sisters Enchanted with the team here. We're all together here. We all sink and swim together. And so we've got to work as a community, even if you believe different things in the community, right? All right, let's see here. Jennifer was sharing, my partner's doing some work with a friend of mine in quantum computing. Oh, goodness. Yeah, quantum physics and witchcraft have a lot in common. If you start to think about, okay, so we're coming up on an hour, so I'm going to have to end this call here. But if you start thinking about timelines and like your energy. So one of the things we teach in holistic witchery is around the energy centers and the stories that you hold there. And so if you think about your, the sacral energy center, one of the things I talk about is the sacral curse for women, how we will take no pleasure for ourselves and just like do for others constantly, and then get mad that we've had no pleasure in our lives forever. And when you think about energy and your energy within you, and then your aura, which is energy, we can think about kind of cranking up the levels of the energy, or the dial on the energy, right? And so when you think about your sacral energy, for example, you have the choice to be on the energy that says, no one ever lets me have time for myself. No one listens to me. No matter how many times I say it, no one listens. Everyone takes advantage of me. And then when you're saying that, though, on some level, you've bought into that energetic that line of energy. You got on that train, and whatever actions you're taking are also allowing those things to happen. When you're saying no one helps me, I bet you're still getting up though and doing everything. I bet you're not sitting there and letting it pile up. Like, you're doing it. So you've bought into that. And then we can think about another energy level. And this is where like this quantum physics stuff, you can shift your energy to a different, whether you want to call it frequency or station or 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, whatever D's of vibration, right? You shift to saying, it seems like I'm lacking pleasure in my life. I'm no longer going to accept that. And then you do something about it, versus shifting the energy to, I am a beacon of pleasure. I see pleasure all the time, all around me. Opportunities for pleasure there's 1,000 of them a day. And then you start looking for it, versus like, I wake up and radiate pleasure, and you can start to change your energetic pattern of the stories in your own energy. And that's where quantum physics comes in, because it's this whole idea that everything has an energy to it. And it's just about jumping timelines and jumping energy frequencies, and how two people can be in one room having completely different experiences. It happens to my husband and I all the time, where he sees something, he's like, this is awful, it's so stressful, no one's listening, it's too loud in here. And he's like on this frequency, and I'm over here and I'm like, oh, that was a wild ride. Did you feel that energy? Goodness, we had this opportunity to experience this like heightened state of emotion. And this person learned something when they, did the dumb thing and got hurt. And like, look at this, was such an opportunity for us to live today. And we're on two different, I'm up here in like the 6D and he's down here in the 3D. But I can't make him come up here. He has to do that on his own. And so it's really this just consciously staying in the other energy and creating that for yourself. But we look at the energy centers and the stories you hold there, and you can start to do that like story by story by story and experience by experience by experience. And that's that quantum physics overlapping with witchcraft, and that it's really frequency and energy. And if we just switch the frequency, what does that do for us? And I think that is a very powerful strategy. And it's really hard for us to do, because when you switch just to a different story and a different energy, it's so easy to say, but what about all that pain and suffering that I had? Is that no longer valid? Does it no longer matter? Like, that person never atoned for what they did to me. So I can't just leave that behind. I can't leave behind the identity that I'm a person who does too much and nobody does for me. I can't leave behind the identity that I'm a mother of a struggling person, or I'm in my case, the granddaughter of a grandfather with dementia, and he's very unpredictable. Like, what does it mean to let go of those identities? And that's really hard for us to do as people, really, really hard for us to do as people. And we don't want to let go of the things that made us who we were. And we don't want our stories and experiences to be invalidated. Like, I've had a lot of bad stuff happen to me in my life. And what does it mean when I wake up and say, I don't know, it was a thing. It was a thing, man. Today is a new day. It's a beautiful day. It's a day to be alive. Does that mean none of that mattered? Does it mean none of that pain mattered? Does it mean that I'm shoving it down? No one needs to hear about it. No one needs to hear my story. I don't know. That's for everybody to decide. But that's why we don't move on and change our frequency, because it's, who are we then? And what was that all for? And what is it no longer valid if I just change my story? If I just change that, the way I'm radiating, what I'm open to, right? Does that just change? So many questions. All right. Nicole was asking, holistic witchery is, 2-1 to 2-4. Anna's doing an orientation on Monday, but she is going to do a second one also after. She's doing one for the people that are already in, so that they're organized. Because sometimes it can be tricky for when people have already been in holistic witchery and we're starting something off new versus people who are totally new. So there's going to be two different things happening there. Tammy, and the conversation here about partners. Yeah. My husband, I don't know. I buy my gifts. I have them shipped to the house, and then I tell him that that's the gift for this thing, and I don't open it, but I buy it enough in advance so that I'm excited still when I see it and kind of forget what's in there. But I just do not like his choice of gifts usually. And it just is better for everybody if I do that. And then I get exactly what I want, and I'm really excited about it. And yeah, this TK, what frequency are you? Exactly. All right, Christy, I don't know. We'll see if I think the Sunday chats will be more often than not, but I'm having a little bit of commitment phobia, saying that they're definitely going to happen every week. Some weeks I record like 8 to 10 hours of video stuff in 1 week. And just like, I don't want to use my voice. There we go. All right, then. Here we go. Oh, Aisha's sharing. You've totally explained where I'm at right now. No is listening. I'm constantly repeating myself, and it feels like it's been so chaotic around here. I can have a whole other, I'm going to write this down, a whole other conversation for another week about assertive communication. That's something I really, as a Cancer rising, and then I have my Sagittarius in that 6th house of service, I will do for others until I am literally physically ill. And then I will still try to do for others. So learning assertive communication has been a game changer in my life. We'll talk about that too. Anyway, if you're not in Holistic Witchery, we do have registration coming up. Get on the info list, at least check it out, read through the packet. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not. But it is where I think everybody should take it, because it will, if you're a self-aware person now, you will know yourself inside and out by the time you're done with it. You will know yourself inside out, sideways, upside down, every nook and cranny. And one of the things I see in the metaphysical world is people Googling their birth charts, pulling tarot cards like 4 times a day, every day, and not feeling different in life. And it's because those tools become a tool for escapism and not a tool for growth. And we want you to know thyself, and we want you to feel like, no matter the circumstance, that life is, feeling alive is a possibility for you, and feeling like you can feel the magic coursing through your blood, and that you know that you have some agency in every situation is available to you. We want you to do that. Patty's asking what if you've already completed it. Patty, you just joined again. So Anna will usually post or send out emails to let you know what's going on. And Holistic Witchery is just a, once you're in, that you can do it over and over. And it's one of those things where you are a different person every time you go through it. I've been thinking about this a lot lately about, I think there's this idea that once we've like fixed a problem in our life, the problem goes away. The problems don't go away. They come back in new and exciting ways. I've been very, very broke. Like I've been so broke, like ramen noodles for dinner every day of the week, poor. And I had lots of, money problems then. And now, as a person who has a business, and we've got a big team here, a lot of people behind the scenes that you don't even see. And like, I'm able to support my family, and that's all well and good. But the energy of feeling like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with today to solve this problem doesn't go away. It's just the problems now are very expensive tax problems, or they're very expensive contractor bills that have to be taken care of, or like marketing expenditures and things like that. And the feeling is not different. That's the thing. The feeling isn't different. The feeling of not being able to buy food at the grocery store is not different than the feeling of feeling like I'm not going to be able to pay a tax bill. The feeling is not different. And that's the feeling that lives in your energy. So every time you take Holistic Witchery and you grow in your life, or something expands, things will happen that give you the same, it'll be a different thing, same feeling. So then you're able to use the things in Holistic Witchery, and the 5-eye spiral and conjuring abundance, all of the tools that you have in astrology, to then look at, I have the same feeling I had before in a new and exciting circumstance. And how do I work through this next level, and addressing the feeling that never really, the feelings don't go away. They live in your energy forever, and they come out with new circumstances. So Holistic Witchery, you do again and again and again, because you're a different person every time you do it. And we've had people go through it. We've been doing Holistic Witchery for 5 years, and we've had people who've done it for at least once a year, all of 5 years. So definitely check it out. If it's been on your interest list, let us know if you want information. We'll get it to you. Anyway, and if you're in magical self-care, make sure you're looking at all your resources and the course and all the good stuff you have there, because there is some game-changing stuff in there also. All right, time for me to actually drink this coffee I brought to the coffee chat, which is now very cold. And I will see you all. Maybe I'll see you next week. I think I'll see you next week. I hope you have a great day. Go plan your week ahead. Live with intention. And I'll see you all around. Okay. Bye.